See, many people get discouraged when they put a lot of effort into something. And then they give up, and then they're afraid to go put effort again because they're afraid of experiencing that failure, because that failure is a direct confrontation between who they want to be and who they are right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Raynday Gaming Show. Today, we are going to talk about 3 key laws to move your life into momentum. And you're probably familiar with them, but you may not know that they apply to you. Also, let's get it off right quick with the idea that getting into a good position in life is a service to you. It is not a negative. We've seen a lot of people have an eat the rich mentality. And I tell you what, this is one of those mentalities that does not serve you or anyone else, because it doesn't focus on what you can control. I can't make Jeff Bezos not a billionaire. I don't need his money. My life isn't going to be fixed. My family isn't going to be taken care of. My job fulfillment, my process in this world is going to have no impact based on what he does with his money. Now, you might want to look at it politically. You might want to look at all these things. That's fine. I've gone through many presidents. So have you. And our lives still seem to have a big impact based on what we do. So in this episode, in this show, we talk about personal responsibility and control. If you feel like you don't have control, then this is a show that can help you get more. If you feel like you have a lot of control, this is a show to align you with people who think the way that you do and encourage you to keep going. And if you're kind of in the middle, feel like life happens to you sometimes, feel like, sometimes you have control, but not over the things you want, this is a great place to be. I'm so excited to do this again. We're going to at least have an episode once every week from right now, and we'll see. The comments I got in the last video were amazing, and I really appreciate everyone leaving comments, leaving likes. I encourage you to leave a like on this video and become a member, because that is how we're going to support the show, at least right now on YouTube. We got a lot of cool things in the mix. Let's talk, though, about this, why the rich get richer. Have you ever heard that? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It's kind of one thing that at least I grew up with, as kind of just a nomenclature, a phrase, that felt weird, right? Because the idea is that why would someone who already has so much going on get more? Okay, it feels unfair and it feels wrong. And in many ways, as I was growing up as a young man, going through phases of, our family losing our house, going through phases of not having any money, not having the jobs that I wanted, switching careers after being drafted into the MLS and having to completely change, starting from scratch, essentially, in terms of a career to try to figure out what I wanted to do next. There were a lot of moments I saw people getting things for free. I saw people on my team already getting more goals, getting more hype in the news. And I was just struggling, wanting to get a little piece of that. And it felt unfair. Well, the reason, and I can verify that this is true now in my stage of life, that this is true, the rich do get richer, the poor do get poorer, has nothing to do with evil. It has nothing to do with capitalism. It has nothing to do with politics, or the world not being right. It is a law of the universe. And I say universe in the big picture, where you can make your own impact and your own definition of what that means. But I think we can all come to an understanding that universe means the big picture, how things work. That's how I interpret the idea of the universe. People who are in momentum, because of that, get more opportunities. And it's pretty simple when you think about it, even though from a money perspective, it seems unfair. Let's walk through it in something you pretty much know, like movies. You ever know there's a hot actor or a hot kind of star that's just getting every single role? That first role sparked the interest in the next role and the next role and the next role. You don't make the hot star take a break when you got a movie that would be perfect for them. And you don't hire someone who hasn't worked in 30 years usually for the big Steven Spielberg movie. Typically, you hire someone who is on the up and up, who is coming and being successful already. And to that point, people who are in positive trends in their life, we've seen that too. Our friends, some family members, they're doing well and they keep doing well. And you wonder, how is it that it's just, for me, it feels like my life is good and then bad and then blah, and I just am all over the place. And this person kind of is on this nice trajectory. Well, there are 3 laws I'm going to discuss, and we're going to break down why in this episode that is happening. Because on the other side of things too, it does feel like when life isn't going well, it really all hits at once. You know, that breakup, you know, that unhealthy eating habit, that feeling unmotivated, that, you know, losing of your job, you know, a financial crisis in the world. It feels like it all happens at the same time. And for someone who is cynical, you might think, you know, there's no rhyme, there's no reason. I'm just unlucky. And in many ways, that might be a healthy mentality because sometimes you are just unlucky. But I'm here to tell you from my experience that there's really a lot more going on to the fact that momentum is not just a law of physics. It is a law of how we live in our society. That is unwritten, that is never talked about, yet is so real from the experiences I've seen and the things that when you really look at them in the world happen, that if you figure this out and you apply this to your life, you will know exactly how to get into momentum and turn your life around and take more control over creating the life that you love. I mean, quick example too, when you look at money, how can you make the most amount of money in the stock market? You have to have a ton of money. And this is where it becomes a weird conversation around who's got money and nepotism and capitalism and all these things. I want you to put that to the side for a moment. Go argue about that on Twitter. In this show, I want you to think a little deeper. And I want you to realize that that same principle applies to everything that we do. The first law is something you've heard. You've heard all 3 of these, but you haven't seen how they apply to your life in our real world. Let's start with them. The first law, this was actually an old school one. It came about by a guy named Galileo. And although at that time it was really contentious, this idea, it took a while until a young fella named Isaac Newton was able to really showcase to the world, this is how motion works. The 3 laws of motion. Every object moves in a straight line unless acted upon by a force. And you need a force to move the object. Number 2, the acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the force exerted and inversely proportional to the object's mass. That's an important one to pay attention to. I'll read that again. The acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the net force exerted and inversely proportional to the object's mass. And number 3, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, this all may seem high level, it all may seem disconnected, but I want to talk about how important these laws are in discovering a way to quickly and easily get yourself into momentum, because these are certainly true human characteristics in our society that I've experienced in many different ways. And I'll tell you some stories about it too, because I happen to be a great procrastinator. I am phenomenal, but I'm a smart procrastinator because when I make things happen, I go with such intensity that I tend to actually get things going once I decide to go. So I have this kind of down period whenever I'm not doing things. And when I do them at such a high level that they end up getting some success pretty quickly and kind of moving forward. And that leads to more and more. Number 1, every object moves in a straight line unless acted on by a force. And in another way, an object will not change its motion unless a force acts on it, is another way to think about that. Your life, you are the force. And the object is whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is that you want to do. Many people sit around in their lives waiting for something to happen. They wait for a situation to be right. They wait for a call. They wait for to meet someone. They say one day it's going to happen. I know in both sides of relationships, people wait to be met. They wait to find the right one. They wait to get themselves in order. They wait to fix that habit that's not working for them. They wait for the raise, right? They wait. And what you find is that weighting enacts no force onto the object of your desire. And that's one of the reasons people stay stuck, by being complacent and waiting for the world to take over and give you what you want. The way that you can create what you want is to move in the direction that you want for creating the object of your desire in your life. If you want to have a better body, go to the gym. Start eating better. The great thing about this is, as you do it once and as you do it again, you will continue to build not only repetition and habit, but you'll continue to build yourself closer towards that object that you want, whether it is a physical feeling, an interaction with someone, a job, a raise. And if you really distill it, many people aren't looking for those things. And this might be too much for this episode. We'll get down to it. But there's the idea of what you really want as an object, but also what's underneath that. A lot of people want a job and a raise in order to feel secure and to feel free and to go on that vacation they haven't been on because they felt too tight with money, to get a little weight off their shoulders because they got a child on the way, or they have children already, or they're looking to set themselves up financially to be able to go out and date, or, go on a trip with their friends. Whatever it is, oftentimes what we really say we want, there's something underneath it as an experience that we're craving. And even that idea of emotion as the experience is just feeling loved, feeling secure. I mean, it's something to think about, because when you really look at it, you might be able to get that in a different way. And you might be able to really create the object of your desire so that it fits not just with what you think that thing is that it's going to give you that. Because money often doesn't give you security. Money often makes you more paranoid. It often creates a lot of different emotions that people don't understand. And it truly is something you have to experience to see, because many people in our world praise money and they praise that as freedom. It certainly isn't freedom in many different ways. And if you're making hundreds of millions of dollars as a CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, you're working a lot. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that money. There's a lot of sacrifice of your family and your time. And many people say, I'll trade it, I'll work it out. Yeah, that's easy to say when it's not your life, your one life you're living right now. It's a little different when you're caught up in the cycle and wondering, am I really going to give this up? Is this really going to change? Because this is my identity. This is what I've worked for. Am I going to give it all up now? And that's something that we have to consider. Number one, continue, just to reiterate that. You have to move in the direction of your goal. Stop waiting for something to happen to give you permission. Go towards the object of your desire. It will not move unless force is acted upon it. And that force is you. Okay? That's the accountability, the responsibility for creating what you want. That's step one. Number two, how do I get there quickly? The acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the net force exerted, meaning how fast I go is proportional to how much force I put into moving that object towards my goal, and inversely proportional to the object's mass, meaning the bigger my goal is, the more force I need to get there quickly. And the bigger my goal is, if it's the same amount of force, it's going to take me a longer time that I'm going to have to keep exerting it. Think of a baseball. Force is mass times acceleration. So if I have a small baseball and a ton of force, I'm going to be able to accelerate that mass quickly. I'll be able to throw that thing 90 miles an hour, as you can see. Many people do every night in the MLB. But what if that mass was no longer small and it was a huge 10-foot, 20-foot boulder that you could barely get your hands on all the way across? You put that same force you did to throw the small baseball, you would barely be able to move that. You might be able to, but it would take time and effort and constant pushing. And then it would slowly roll. And that is the true thing many people fail to do accurately when they're chasing a big dream. They fail to understand what they're doing. If you want to have 1 million subscribers, if you want to create a life where you are out of the system and you work for yourself and you're an entrepreneur and you live and die by what you make, what you get, what you create business-wise, you eat with that, you build a family with that. If you want to look like a superstar, a model, do you want to get in that fitness you've never been in your life? If that is way far away from where you are now, you have to realize that even if you're working hard, because of the mass of that goal, the huge, huge goal that is, it is going to take time. See, many people get discouraged when they put a lot of effort into something. And then they give up, and then they're afraid to go put effort again because they're afraid of experiencing that failure, because that failure is a direct confrontation between who they want to be and who they are right now. And once you get comfortable with the idea that you will be confronting the version of yourself you want to be and the version of yourself that isn't quite up to par right now, you get comfortable with that image, then you are okay with the journey, because you know it's going to be a process getting there in the end. And that is ultimately what this means. If you have a small goal, you can get there quickly. A little bit of force, moving a small mass object, you could accelerate pretty fast. I want to, study for my test this week, and I need 2 hours each day. I could do that. 2 hours a day, 3 days in a row. I've got it. I got my goal. I studied. I did well on my test. That's pretty easy. But if you want to do something that I think we all want to do on this channel, which is change our lives, hit these big goals. Maybe you want to be a best-selling author. Maybe you want to be a musician and play live in front of a sold-out arena, or even just a sold-out venue anywhere in your local town. Maybe you want to build your own business that has 10 employees. It's a ton of employees. If you want something like that, you are going to have to settle down and understand that this is a road, a journey. And I tell my friends, I tell my family, I tell them, this is what I did. I did a 5-year plan after college, after soccer, into where I wanted to be by 30. And as 30 hit, I had another 5-year plan on where I want to be by 35. And then ultimately, you got to have a 10-year plan. This is amorphous. Let it shift. I think every 3 years, your life shifts. But in a 10-year plan, you have a scope of what you would like to have accomplished and what phase of life you would like to be in. Because that, to me, is where you get your clear vision. And when you put yourself in those positions, you automatically set up the idea that it is okay, that because I'm working for this long goal, it's going to take a little bit more time, and I'm going to stay consistent with it. I'm not going to kid myself and get discouraged thinking it should have happened in 3 months. This might be a 5-year goal to be a completely independent content creator or YouTuber or author or whatever it is, business. But I know that it's directly proportional. And if it's taking that long, I know that mass that I'm moving, it's so big, that goal, that object of my desire is so big and so great. When I get there, I'm going to be happy that I exerted this force for that long of a time. The third law, that is the most important law to saving yourself trouble and time on this journey, is that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every action you do, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And in the simplest way, what you put out comes back. What you create is created back towards you. It's amazing how these laws apply in such a myriad of ways to our life. Whether you think about it spiritually, you think about it practically, or you think about it scientifically. Scientifically, we understand that how this works is when you apply force to an object, that force essentially springs back and applies that same force back to you. But we're not looking at it in that same way as Newton described. And you can go and research this. This is all really fundamental, fun stuff to look at and kind of gets you back into that school mentality. Or maybe you're in school right now and you know what I'm talking about. But the other practical idea is that when I put out an action of resentment towards someone because something didn't work out, that resentment is created and comes back to me. We often like to say that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, because nobody gets to feel your resentment except you. So when you put out that anger towards someone else and they're just walking down the street, enjoying their life, looking at you, you look at them where they're like, huh? And they just move on. Who's the one stuck with all the anger and the resentment and the toil and the frustration? You are. So in that way, that equal and opposite reaction of the action you've taken has actually come back to you. I like to say this as well. When you resist, what you resist, you're stuck with. And because that resistance is in itself an action of standing still and clamping tight, like you're driving down a road and you're grabbing the steering wheel, keeping it just with your knuckles, you could tell, just kind of almost tensing up to the point where you are holding on to there's no way you're not getting what you're grabbing onto. This is you holding on to that resentment. That's you holding on to, whatever it feels like is, oh, that was such a bad thing that happened in my life. Oh, this was such a terrible situation. That's such a terrible person. When you do that, this is what you get. You get to hold all those ideas and keep them inside of you. That's what you get. You interact with those people. You give them terrible vibes. They give you terrible vibes back. You create that situation. Even if they did something wrong to you, you own it now. Instead of moving on, well, that guy was a jerk. I'm never going to talk to him again. Move on, live my life. They stay doing their thing. Instead of moving on, letting go, you hold on and you create that opposite reaction. And this happens in business and this happens in relationships. A fight that you don't have to get into, that you could just move on, resist, and let go. We all know that when we dig our heels in a fight, and a significant other, with a friend, with a family member, guess how well that fight goes? Not great. Two people start arguing even more. When one person gives in, when one person apologizes, when one person says, you know what, it's not a big deal, my bad. That diffuses everything. And what do you get with that? You get non-resistance back. Have you ever had someone yell at you and you just put your hands up, I'm sorry? How long have they kept yelling until they have to stop? That is the exact concept that happens all throughout life. And it happens through business, and it happens through these situations where I've seen people say, what a terrible, terrible thing that happened. And I go, I don't know if it's terrible. I mean, I don't know. What I do know is that, sure, I would never have wished that to occur. What I don't know is if I want to own the concept in my mind and hold on to it, that it's bad. Because maybe there's something on the other side of it that is going to be for the highest good, better than that was, better than what was occurring on that other path. And that allows me to not hold on to these negative feelings, allows me to move through my day as if, things are happening and I'm going to let them happen and move my force, not in this area of resistance and holding, right? Because that will then give me what I'm holding on to, what I'm resisting. I'm going to move my force of my life into the direction of the object of my desire. Because yes, I have big goals. So do you, that are going to take a little bit of time to move that mass, to build that business, to create the life that you love. Do that thing that's just been, you got to get done. You got to get done because the world will be better if you do it. Your family will be better if you do it. You will be happier with yourself if you do it. That's why people make mistakes. These 3 laws, they treat as a science project. They treat it as something they learned in 7th or 8th grade, and they don't treat it about how the world works. When you give to others, when you put out good energy, when you go through this world, knowing that what you resist, you are stuck with, that the object of your desire needs your force applied to it consistently if it's bigger. And if you want to go a little faster, you can. You'll get there sooner if you really do a big sprint. But also the fact that when you look at this situation, nothing will change unless you change yourself and start acting upon it. That first law, it requires you to put that object in motion. A force must be applied. This is the key to creating the life that you want. To close, I did a 90-day challenge. And this is something that I'm coming out with from a book perspective, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But I wanted to just mention how I covered this on YouTube. I got 100,000 subscribers in 90 days. And this is the idea of being at a low point, needing to exert a ton of force very quickly to change my direction in life and to get to that position. And it worked. And what I know is that if you guys do that, and it may not be 90 days, and it might be 160, it might be 30, but you continue down that road, you will achieve the things that you're looking to do. Let me know what your law is that you are working on right now. What is the most important thing? Is it to let go of the things that you've been reacting to that are giving you equal and opposite reactions that are not in your favor? Is it putting your force onto an object in the first place? You're just kind of becoming you're a little more stationary right now in life. You're not really acting towards the direction that you want. It's time to start taking those steps. Or is it having the awareness of the vision that you want, applying that force to that big mass, right? And accelerating towards your goal, even if it's going to take time, even if you're moving that huge boulder a large distance away. What is it that you're working on right now? And how can we help? Let us convene in the comment section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share this. I know some of you shared it to your inner circle. Share it as well and consider becoming a member of the Raynday Gaming Show. It's always a pleasure speaking up with you guys. Let me know if there's any topic in the future that you'd like me to cover. As always, remember to never give up, never stop gaming. I'll see you all next time.